the agenda as we go, but the fire department's on here, so I want to get them before they leave. All right, guys, welcome to the Sugar House Community Council meeting, the March edition. Just a reminder, everybody's muted, as you can tell. All questions will be handled in the chat for all speakers tonight. Again, just a reminder to be respectful of the speakers. A couple things before we get started. Maybe I'll wait for Maggie. I don't see her on quite yet, but this will be Maggie's last meeting. She has too many things going on and she's been awesome. So we're sad to see her go. Also, we've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails from Utah House and Senate candidates. There'll be a couple on here tonight. At our June meeting, we will have all the candidates come and we'll try to figure out some sort of format. But in the meantime, you guys are welcome to drop your information in the chat for folks to reach out to you, to ask questions, however you're doing it. I see Cabot and Nate are already on here. Let's do a secretary report. Shane, do you have anything?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. You'd think I'd figure this out after 2 years, but I still struggle.
We're so close to going back.
That's good news. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. I do have something. So as you know, we voted to update our bylaws in the last meeting. The only piece of that puzzle that was remaining to be settled was the attachment C to the bylaws. And that has to do with allocation of trustees based on the 2020 census data. So I've had a chance to review that and update that attachment. I'm wondering if I can share my screen. Is that something you can let me do?
Yeah, Brandon will.
Okay, here we go. Oh, wait. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, so what you're seeing there is a map of historical Sugar House Community Council districts. And then what's written on each of those blocks is the corresponding census tract. And so you can see that some districts like Emerson, Garfield, Westminster, the boundaries of those neighborhoods correspond one-to-one with the census tract. And so for Garfield, for instance, you can look at census tract E9 and you can tell exactly how many people the Garfield neighborhood gained or lost between 2010 and 2020. But there are other neighborhoods that break across a census tract. So for example, if you look at Fairmont and Sugar House Park, those are both within census tract E14. And so while it's possible to tell how many people census tract E14 gained or lost between 2010 and 2020, it's not possible to determine, at least I haven't figured out a way to do it. And if anyone knows, I'd be happy to reconsider my calculations. I haven't figured out how to break out that gain or loss across those two neighborhoods. And so what I did to reconcile that is, so for example, for E14, I divided it by 2, and then I assigned each of the quotient, so half to Fairmont and half to Sugar House Park. Likewise, you can see E15, which is highlighted there in blue, breaks across 3 neighborhoods, Forestdale, Highland Park, and Grandview. I divided that by 3, and I assigned 1 part to Forestdale, 1 part to Highland Park, and 1 part to Grandview. And so this is the end result of that. So this is how the population of Sugar House changed over the last 10 years. You can see we actually added about 3,000 people total to Sugar House. It increased from 34,400 to 37,386. The interesting thing here is that the resulting increase actually resulted in a more equal distribution across various neighborhoods, particularly for the Sugar House Park and the Fairmont neighborhoods. That makes a lot of sense. Fairmont used to be mostly commercial and even industrial, and now there are a lot of apartments and condos, and that neighborhood has increased in population. You can see that reflected here. Whereas Fairmont in 2010 had a population of 951, it now has a population of 2,063. The result is that Fairmont actually increased in its percentage of the total sugar house population from 3% to 6% and added a trustee. And in doing so, it actually kind of redistributed the distribution of trustees across the entirety of Sugar House. So for example, Beacon Heights, you can see at the very top, Beacon Heights added population, but it actually decreased in its amount of representation. So from 8% to 7% of the total population. That didn't affect the amount of trustees in that neighborhood, but you can see how that distribution is changing as the total population of Sugar House shakes out across broader Sugar House. Just interesting to me is the fact we have 13 neighborhoods in the Sugar House Community Council. If you distributed the population evenly across those neighborhoods, you would actually get 39 total trustees, because the population would be about 8% for each of those neighborhoods to come up to 100%. And that's how many trustees we have right now. Now, it's not three trustees to every neighborhood. Some have 4, some have 2, but most have 3. And so you can see how that population is kind of distributing as various neighborhoods in Sugar House gain in population. Very few neighborhoods lost in population. Of those that did, I think all of those were directly corresponding to census tracts. So I'm pretty sure that those are accurate. And as you can see in the neighborhoods, I think the only neighborhood where there was really a sizable shift were Sugar House Park and Fairmont. That is one of the neighborhoods that breaks across census tracts. But even if you had kind of distributed those differently than just dividing the population by 2 and assigning that quotient to each of the neighborhoods, it would have been unlikely to result in another trustee, because between 5 and 10 trustees, all neighborhoods are entitled to 3 trustees. So I know that's a little bit confusing. That's a lot of information for you guys to digest in one sitting. But we can do one of 2 things. We can vote to adopt attachment C tonight. Or if we'd prefer, I can send this out. Folks can look at it and we can vote to adopt it during the next meeting. I don't know if there's strong preferences one way or the other, Landon or.
Hey, Shane, Cabot just wrote in the chat that he was involved in the redistricting in 2010 census. I don't know if we should talk to him if we did it right, or, I mean, really you did it right.
Yeah, I'm happy to reconsider, because
we can do it in April. Okay.
Yeah, I might not have done it correctly. So I can talk to Cabot, and then what I'll plan to do is I'll send this out to everybody and you can look at it. If anybody has objections or thinks something's wrong or has questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's just plan to adopt this at the April meeting, and then the bylaws will truly be complete for another 10 years, at least.
Awesome, Shane. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Thanks for all the work.
You bet.
All right, I don't see Eric from Chick-fil-A quite yet, so we're going to go to Tyler Anderson. So the Michael G. Spotlight on Business tonight is Urban Sailor. Tyler, are you ready?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thankful for the opportunity to just introduce myself and my family. We've got a family business that we launched during the pandemic. Some of you may have experienced us. We used to park a sidecar motorcycle in front of a couple of businesses, including Liberty Heights Fresh, a lot last summer and fall. That kind of sidecar motorcycle coffee bar has turned into a full-size coffee shop in Sugar House, and we're right across from Sugar House Park next to the Dodo. And it's basically myself and my 4 sons and my girlfriend and my girlfriend's son, and it's definitely a family business, and we're really excited about it. So if you've had a chance to stop in, thank you for coming by. If you haven't, we're kind of trying to recreate a little bit of an old school coffee shop, kind of a neighborhood hangout. There's leather chairs and couches, and Wi-Fi and things like that. So we're not trying to push people fast through a drive-through. In fact, we don't even have a drive-through. So that's kind of what we're doing, and we just appreciate the council's willingness to highlight us in the newsletter this last month and give us a little shout out.
You're welcome, man. Your place is awesome. It's in the old paint mixer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, you want to hurry and do a treasury report?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Yeah, this will be easy. So because there's not much activity for the last month. US bank balance is $6,591.56. Just checked it today. And no new activity this last month, a couple pennies in there from interest. PayPal, $0. I transferred the balance right after or right before our last month's meeting, and no new activity there. So that's all I've got to report.
That was fast. Thank you. I don't see the fire department yet. I think they left. Let's go to, I see Christy Sweat on here. Let's have Christy Sweat talk. So Christy Sweat is our Salt Lake School Board member. She's here just, the school board's been in the news quite a bit, or the school district's been in the news. So she's just here to kind of give a summary of what's going on, and I consider her a friend. So go ahead, Christy.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Landon, for the invite tonight. I definitely interface with Landon a lot around issues with the schools and the neighborhoods. So just a little background, I've been on the school board for 19 years, represent precinct 7. So that's pretty much all the feeders that go into Highland High School. I'm sure all of you have seen in the news that lately, one of the things that we're looking at is the decrease in enrollment. Although the census showed that we had an increase in the city population, and also just from the numbers that you could see that there was increase in neighborhoods, what we're not seeing is increase in kids. So, all of our schools over the past 5 years, we have lost about 5,000 students. And when you talk 5,000 students, when our schools were built for 550 kids per elementary school, and most of them are under 300. And then there's a good portion of them that are still right around that 350. And then there's only a couple that actually hit that 500. So over the next 3 years, which is not going to be a lot of fun, we're going to be looking at schools and clusters and making some decisions on whether or not we're going to have to close any schools. One of the things that we've talked a little bit about is investing in small schools, but it's hard when you've got a building that's built for 550 and you only have 200 plus kids in it, and you've only have one teacher per grade. So we do have a couple of schools that are like that right now. They're definitely being watched. We're a little concerned about those. But last night in our school board meeting, that was one of the things we talked about, was to extend that out over the next 3 years, study, look at patterns, if there's any way that we can increase, that enrollment in any of the schools. That's what we're doing. So here's a couple of things that would be really great as a community to get behind. The first thing is that for the past 5 years, at least, over the 2 mayors, the school board has been interfacing with the city council, and it's a continual conversation about affordable housing. Because when you look at, especially in our north and southwest quadrants, so that'd be the Glendale and Rose Park area, that's where we've seen the most dramatic drop in families. And it's because the rents have gotten too high. They can't afford homes. It's just gotten to a point where it's a crisis. So when we said to them, we really need you to do affordable housing, one of the things that we just did was we had a demographer come in, and he said, let's just look over the past 5 years, or maybe just the last couple of years. And Salt Lake City has built in the downtown area and, in the central area, about 4,500 units. So residential units that they would call, 1, 2, very rarely do you see a 3-bedroom. And out of that 4,500, a school district should be able to expect at least 10% at least 10% would have kids or bring kids into the schools. And out of the 4,500, we saw 58. So that was dramatic. It was kind of a dramatic moment for us to see that the city at that time had really not been listening to our plea for looking for affordable housing. Landon's been involved in those conversations. We've been trying to interface more with the city council, with Mayor Mendenhall. And Amy Fowler, who represents this area, knows that there's a crisis that we're looking at with our schools. So right now we have about 42 schools, and that includes all of our high schools, our middle schools, and the elementaries. And just keeping a really positive attitude, looking for programs that we might be able to put in there. If we do invest in small schools, which means, we really don't want to have only one choice per grade, but it's really difficult to finance a classroom with only 15 kids in it. So that's the gloom and doom part, of the school district right now. But the other part that's so great is that there's really great things going on in all of our schools. And just know that we have amazing teachers. We've got good principals. We're going to have a change on the board because, of course, this year is an election, but things are moving forward. And I feel like we're in a good spot, with the new superintendent and with the board that we have right now. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot. The Highland High area is doing really well. We feel like, we're interfacing well with the Sugar House Community Council, through Landon, and also through Parks and Rec with the Sugar House Park Authority, and just making sure that, our kids are safe wherever they are. But I'm really open to have any questions. If you have any questions for me, I'll try and answer them for you. But otherwise, I just really appreciate being here tonight, and know that you can reach out to me at any time if questions come up about schools.
Hey, Christy, there's a question in the chat. Is there anything we can do to reduce teachers to somewhere closer to 20 to keep schools open?
That's what we're going to be talking about. And so the concern always is, well, I will tell you right now that in a lot of our schools, that's where we're at. We're between 15 and 20 kids in all of our classrooms. There's very few of our elementaries. Highland Park is an exception. Highland Park's enrollment is above 500, but most of them are not. And so we're looking at how much would it cost us to run a school to be able to afford all of our teachers, have 2 teachers per grade level. So there's choice for parents, and know that we might be at, 15 to 20 kids per classroom. Right now, what our ratio is 1 to 25 in kindergarten and 1 to 28 K through 12. 4 through 12. So we are going to be looking at that. That's going to be one of our big questions over the next 3 years, is talking about finances. And, in the middle of that, we're also going to be trying to rebuild both of our high schools that need to be rebuilt, which is West High and Highland High, both need to be rebuilt, which means a bond. So all of that's going to be on the table, talking about, can we afford to do that? Can we afford to keep, our schools open with small classrooms and at least having 2 teachers per grade? The exciting part, and Jeremy put this in here, which really is exciting, is that Highland High is actually growing. We're going to see a big boom with Highland next year. We did this year, and Highland hasn't had, and I was telling Jeremy this, over the last 2 decades, we've never gone over 2,000 at Highland. It's been a really long time since Highland's seen that kind of an enrollment. And so Jeremy Chatterton's a really great resource for all of you too, to kind of keep you in that loop about what's happening at Highland High. So we're excited to see all kids coming from all different parts of actually the valley to come and attend Highland. Let's see, any other questions?
There's one about if you think kids have fallen behind with the disruption in classroom in-person learning.
They absolutely have. That's a really hard discussion to have right now, because it's difficult to see that there is a huge inequity with kids from, Beacon Heights versus Mountain View Elementary that's in the Glendale area. And you can see where there was possibly more parental help or more resources in some homes than there were other homes. And so, yes, we have a huge learning gap right now that we're trying to deal with. It's been difficult, but I think that with the ESSER money, which is the money that the federal government sent to each of the states to help with these specific things. So there's a lot of resources that we're pouring into the schools. We have about $50 million, which is an astounding amount of money, flexible, somewhat flexible, but it has to be used towards that. And we are definitely going to be putting a lot of resources into the schools to address the learning gap that we see across our district. Let's see. The legislature didn't seem to discuss it yet. Well, you know, they've been discussing a lot of other things, Mary. It's been an interesting legislative session this year. So
The voucher bill didn't pass though, right?
no, we had, I mean, I don't know how, I'm sorry, you know, the voucher, sorry, but we were really happy to not see private schools benefit from public money that just is not accountable. So that was one of the things that we were really happy to see, the voucher bill, you know, the Hope Scholarship.
Well, thanks, Christy. Thank you so much for always.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm happy to come anytime if you have questions, and please email me. I'll put my email in the chat so that if you have questions, you can certainly reach out. And of course, you all know that Jeremy is a great resource too.
He's on here. And I have 2 kids at Highland, so
I know Landon, I talk to Landon all the time.
Thank you.
Talk to school all the time. Thanks.
All right, next we're going to go to Eric. I think he has pretty awesome news, so I wanted him to be here tonight to talk about it. Can you unmute yourself, Eric? Brandon, can you share the screen by chance?
All right, I think I'm unmuted. Were you able to pull up the document, or do
Yeah,
I?
we will. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Eric Champeau. I'm the owner of the Chick-fil-A and Sugar House on 2100 South. And first of all, I want to apologize for all of the traffic problems that we've caused in the past. When Chick-fil-A first decided to build there, we weren't able to build the way we wanted it to be. And so we also didn't think that it was gonna be as busy as it was, but as you know, Sugar House has grown and developed, you know, we've continued to grow as well. So if you could go to page 3, that would probably be the easiest one to understand. But I just wanted to let you guys know, like, we do understand that we have been that the traffic has been bothersome for everyone who lives in Sugar House. And so I've been trying for the last 5 years to get this done, but we finally were able to get this project approved. And so what we're trying to do is, if you look at the page, we're going to be adding an entrance right by, in between. So yeah, right there, between the Red Man building and our current entrance, we're going to be adding an entrance, and that'll be an entrance only. And so it will take everyone who is normally in the queue waiting for our entrance, it'll take them off of 2100 South, and then it'll bring them here into our entrance, and then they'll go on that south side of the correct way the mouse is showing. It'll kind of bring them to there, and then it'll, from there, the cars will join into our drive-through. So hopefully it'll take everybody off of 2100 South, and it'll put them into our drive-through queue. Anybody obviously who's wanting to go into Chick-fil-A, and hopefully that'll alleviate all of the the traffic issues that we've been having on 2100 South. Now, this isn't, a long-term solution. I understand that and I realize that. And so we're looking to other things. We are currently, our restaurant's one of the top 10% in the chain as far as DoorDash and Uber Eats is concerned. And so we're looking for another offsite location that we could produce a food for DoorDash and Uber Eats. That way, nobody even has to come to our location and, block up traffic or mess with the parking. But that's what I've been able to get done right now. We should be able to, as soon as the permitting is done and approved, they tell me it should be less than a month before it's completely done. So
Awesome, Eric. I'd like to, I know Bill Knowles is on here, so I'd like to think he helped a lot with this. We got the mayor's office involved. It's been
yeah, and I
been a team
appreciate,
effort.
yeah, I appreciate all the emails and everything that I've been able to forward. It's funny because, like I said, I've been asking for this for the last 5 years, but for some reason it hadn't gotten approved. And emails from the mayor's office and the community council and Bill Knowles, that has definitely helped. They had a couple other projects in the state approved before us for some reason. And after I was able to get the project managers on site around lunchtime, and they were almost hit while trying to get into the restaurant, then they realized that they needed to push us forward, in front of a couple of the other projects that they had already approved. So.
Well, thank you, Eric. These guys do a tremendous job with Highland High. I think all the sports teams eat chicken on a pretty regular basis. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, let's go to Bob Norgard. So he's our CIU officer. Bob, you ready?
Graham, how are we?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So a few things to talk about. In the last month, your community had 5 stolen cars, 4 of which were left running and unattended. So let's not do that. The weather's starting to warm up, and I understand if it's cold, you want to warm your cars, but please be near them. A few weeks ago, I had a friend of mine who had the exact same thing happen. Had his car running, ran his garbage cans back to the garage. About less than 60 seconds, his car was gone. It just takes a matter of seconds. So please be mindful of that. Last week, we had an interesting call over on Ramona. There was a domestic incident where an individual was pretty intoxicated, and he decided to point his gun at his wife and then fire around into the air. We were able to get a bunch of officers there pretty quickly. They formed some teams and were able to take him into custody safely. Nobody got hurt. No more shots were fired. So that was really good. There was a road rage right around I-80 and I think 13th East. One guy cut another guy off. Both of them start giving gestures. One guy pulls out a gun and kind of starts trying to chase him down. So where I was going at with that, if somebody cuts you off, we're all adults, just let it go, please. We don't need people getting shot over a traffic infraction, basically. There was a robbery at the Mountain America Bank at 20th East and 21st South. Gentleman passes a note and didn't display any weapons and got away with a little bit of cash. And detectives are still working on trying to ID him. There was another robbery at the CVS at about 13th East and 21st, same thing. Produced a note. The employees didn't give him anything and he left empty-handed. And lastly, is anybody here familiar with the house at 1002 East Elm Avenue? Oh, good, a few of you. So that's been taken care of. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, compliance went out. They cleared out the house, they reboarded it, and we got some no trespassing signs hung up. I spoke with So the gentleman who lives there, he's in jail, and he's going to be in jail for quite a while. I spoke with his mom, who has power of attorney over everything. And she was telling me she is on the fast track to selling that house to get rid of it as quick as she can. So hopefully that's sooner than later, and that problem will not be a problem for you all anymore. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
That's the longest one you've ever done.
I know, man. Sorry.
Someone's on there that owns Pibbs Exchange, and their front door was smashed in and goods stolen. Do you know anything about that? Have they reported that?
I have my sheet pulled up. Give me a second and I'll look at it.
Okay. Maybe you can touch base. Therese Walton, I think I'm saying that right.
What's the address there?
You'll see her in the chat. It's over by the liquor store. It's a great place.
Oh, okay.
You'll see it in the chat, Bob. Thanks again.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, we'll do lunch soon. All right, Michelle, are you ready? So next we have Michelle Hoon as Salt Lake City Hand Project and Policy Manager, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right. And then we're gonna have Tim Cosgrove join her.
Thanks, Landon, and thanks to the Community Council for having me. I have a quick presentation. Am I able to share my screen? Let's see. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Try again.
We're not that fast.
Okay, looks like we're good here. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, and you've just presented this to City Council, is that right?
No. I have presented this to a couple of different folks, but you are the first council
Awesome.
that I am presenting this information to. So what I am here to talk about today is the community commitment program. That is the city's two-phased approach to addressing unsheltered homelessness. And I am trying to figure out how to make this into a slideshow. Sorry. Okay, how does that look? Does that work? Great, okay. All right, so I think it was back in late 2020, the mayor's office and my team, which is the homeless engagement and response team, we worked together to come up with something called the community commitment program. What the community commitment program is a two-phased approach to unsheltered homelessness. It is focused on clean neighborhoods, so making sure that neighborhoods that do have homeless encampments in them are getting a little bit more attention, and that those homeless encampments are getting some services put to them as well. So clean neighborhoods is the first sort of section about this that I'll talk about. And then I will talk about all of the service connection work that our team has been doing over the last year or so. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is cleaning and abatement. Cleaning, we have two things that we do when we have unsheltered encampments that pop up throughout the city. The first thing that we do is we send outreach workers out to those camps to try to engage with people who are experiencing homelessness. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that looks in a minute. The next thing that we do is we send out a cleaning contractor to those encampments to try and clean up. What we know is that there's definitely a lot of just sort of stuff that can accumulate in these situations. So we want to try to just remediate some of the negative things that can be associated with unsheltered encampments while we work to try to get those folks into shelter. So that's what we call single clean, and single cleans, we did 4,386 single cleans with a cleaning contractor called Advantage Services last year. This is for calendar year 21. I should let everybody know. I think everybody probably has heard of the SLC mobile app that tends to get a lot of good traction in our community council meetings. My team, which is very small, I will say, we are not a huge team. We processed 4,517 SLC mobile requests related to homelessness. So that can be anything from reporting a camp to reporting abandoned material to kind of everything in between. And we ended up spending roughly about $1 million on all of those projects. Wanted to talk about outreach really quickly. So what we do, the city is a funder, but we are not a direct service provider. And I think sometimes that can get a little bit confusing for people. So I don't go out to actual homeless encampments and provide outreach, but what we do is we work with a professional outreach team with Volunteers of America, and we work really, really closely with them to get them out to each instance that has been reported to us through that SLC mobile app. So if you go to SLC mobile and you enter you enter something like an encampment, what that does is it goes to my team. My team first engages with Volunteers of America, and we try to get outreach workers out to that camp to engage with folks and try to get them into shelter. So VOA was able to connect with 145 people. They were case managing, they case managed about 109, and they actually were able to permanently house 22 people off the street. That does not sound like a ton of people, but I have to say it is so much work to try, particularly to take somebody who has been living on the street for quite some time, which usually if they are being housed, they have been on the street for quite some time. You have to get them all of their vital documents. You have to get them through a lot of paperwork, and it can take a good amount of time for sure. It's definitely a lot of work. So the fact that they were able to house those 22 people off the street, what that means is that those people are no longer on the streets. They have a place of their own that they can call their home, and they are supported in that and can be stable from there, which is, we're really excited about that. We have been doing resource fairs out at a few of our larger encampments. Some of this can be because we want to put a bunch of resources in front of people before we have to do a camp abatement. But a lot of it also is just trying to do a better job of reaching people who are on the street and trying to get them to engage with services. So we did 10 resource fairs in calendar year 2021. We had 400 plus engagements, which is pretty amazing. 84 vaccines administered. So that's COVID vaccines and I think some flu vaccines too. The Salt Lake City Justice Court goes out to each of these resource fairs to engage with people who are living on the streets, and they heard 183 cases, which is pretty remarkable. We had over 400 sack lunches donated to us from some awesome community members. 31 different service providers participated, and about 20 people volunteered to help us out with those. Also wanted to talk to you today about a couple of other Justice Court outreach activities that our team has helped to put together. One of them that you may have heard of, it got a lot of attention over the last year, is called Kayak Court. What Kayak Court is it is a project that goes along the Jordan River that basically picks up these resource fairs that I just talked about and takes them mobile. So we go down the Jordan River in some boats. One of those boats includes some outreach workers. Another boat is legal defenders. And then there is the last boat, which carries a judge. We go up to an encampment along the river and make sure, like, just check in with people and see if they've got any open court cases that they want to have heard. And then they hold court right there on the banks of the river, which is it's an undertaking to do, but it has been very well received by the people who have been living out there. And we're often asked quite a bit why we do this. And the main reason really is because we know that there are a lot of people who will camp in these more sort of remote areas, so places like the Jordan River, because they don't want to be picked up on warrants. And so this is a way to kind of remove that barrier and make sure that people are feeling safe and free to engage with services. All of this is sort of done to the end of trying to get people to come out of the shadows, get the help that they need to be able to turn their lives around. We have also been working with the Salt Lake City Justice Court on some high utilizer days. What that looks like is opening up court calendars for judges to hear cases from people who are coming from the homeless resource centers. So trying to give a good amount of attention to people who are living unsheltered, but also want to make sure that we are getting those same resources to people who are in shelter so that they can get some of those things resolved, because open cases can definitely sometimes be an issue when you're trying to get into housing. So we want to make sure that that just isn't a barrier for people who need that kind of support. Last thing, we do have some overtime hours with the police department. They spent about 9,275 overtime hours. And what that is it is providing security to the county health department, who goes out and actually performs camp abatements. But then it is also to prevent camps from reestablishing in what we call areas of special concern. What that is places like homeless resource centers or schools or things like that, where if you have an encampment pop up, it can actually create an issue for that vulnerable population to be able to access that resource. With those hours, there were 123 felony arrests made, 176 misdemeanors, and 82 traffic citations as a part of those overtime hours. We are often asked what is coming next for our team. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. We want to continue and improve our outreach efforts and events. So working even more closely with Volunteers of America to really kind of get granular with some of the encampments that we have throughout the city. We want to try as best we can to make it so that we are going out, well, that BOA is going out to these encampments, and that they have an actual place to offer people to get into ahead of any other sort of actions that may need to be taken. So that's one thing that we are developing with what we're calling a rapid intervention team. And then we also want to make sure that we are continuing and improving those resource fairs and kayak courts. We are planning on doing all of those again this year to try to just keep people engaging and get them connected to services, get them hooked up with the stuff that is going to help them and get them off of the street. It kind of goes without saying, but if you don't have a place to, if you have a place to live, you're not homeless. So state and national level housing investments are so important to addressing the homelessness crisis that we have really throughout the country. I say this over and over again, but Salt Lake City is in no different position than every other city, really throughout the country. You can't have something that is a problem in Salt Lake City and a problem in Boise, Idaho, and a problem in New York City and a problem in Louisville, Kentucky, and everywhere in between. without it being a national problem. It really is. And so what we really, really need to see is state level housing investments, but really national level housing investments too. And so we are involved with a lot of different advocacy organizations who are really kind of trying to push on the national level for greater investment in affordable housing and deeply, deeply affordable housing for people who are exiting homelessness. Permanent overflow shelter and a county receiving center. Those are both things that are kind of in the works now. There is some legislation that is working its way through the legislative session right now with regards to this. And if anybody has questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. We are also going through some zoning changes, potential zoning changes right now. What has been proposed is to remove shelters from specific zones in the city and create what's called an overlay. What that would do is it would just kind of change the process for siting shelters, and it would offer the opportunity for more community input in the development of new shelter sites if that turns out to be necessary. We also, as a city that hosts homeless resource centers, are able to get money from the state to mitigate some of the impacts in neighborhoods around homeless resource centers. What we have used this money for historically is some outreach work from Volunteers of America. We've recently started getting more funding from the state for this, which is great. And we were able to expand the Downtown Ambassador program, which has been operating in the downtown area for several years. We were able to expand that to the homeless resource center areas. So those guys are working now in the Ballpark and Central City neighborhoods. And we are working with the state on getting even more funding out of that, because Salt Lake City, despite having the majority of resource center beds in our city, has gotten very, very little funding from the state for through that channel. So the state has proposed adding, I think it's an extra $5 million into that pot, and we would get a more equitable distribution from that. And we want to continue with our outreach efforts, but we also want to see if there's things that we can do in kind of in line with national best practice with the police department to try and just create a better partnership there with that funding. So that's what I have to show you all today.
Hey, Michelle, one of the questions we get a lot is RV parking, and
Yeah.
can you address that a little bit?
Well, can you
I
give
don't
me
know in what
maybe
way,
a little
but-
bit more of a specific thing? I can try and kind of talk a little bit about it, like as a phenomenon. There is
Sure.
we are definitely seeing an increase in people living in their vehicles and things like that. And that happens really naturally when housing is more difficult to come by, which everybody knows that is true. Right now, it is pretty tough to be able to get into a place. So people, they seek alternative arrangements, and a lot of people end up living in their vehicles as a result of that. One of the things that we have done on the city level is we have come up with a fund to help kind of help two things that end up happening when you have a lot of street camp or a lot of RV camping. Many vehicles that people live in become inoperable. And so what we want to do, we have what's called the Streets for Storage Ordinance. We want to make sure that people who are living in their vehicles, if they're parking on our streets, that they're just following that, that they're following that ordinance. And we want to make sure that they're like kind of not like accumulating a bunch of stuff and kind of becoming an issue for the surrounding neighborhood. So if you are going to park on a city street, you can park for 48 hours. We want to make sure that you are moving a block face every 48 hours. You're not able to do that if your car is not operable. So we have a small fund that we work with Volunteers of America, and we send them out to people who are living in their vehicles. And if their vehicles aren't operable, but they have a really quick fix that they need, like say they need a new battery or they need something like that, that can be a pretty quick fix that's done on site, then Volunteers of America can help that person with, I think it's up to about $2,000 to get their vehicle operable. If it is like, and we see this all the time, if it's a vehicle that like doesn't have an engine, you know, that it's like the engine is outside of the vehicle, then we have, try definitely for sure to make sure that that person can get into shelter. And if they can, then we're able to tow the vehicle off the street.
Let's see. So a couple things. We have a few minutes before Evan McMullen's going to join us, I hope. So what can folks in Sugar House do to help your program?
Well, a couple of things. Don't hesitate to put things into SLC Mobile and let us know what you're seeing out there. SLC Mobile does a couple of things. It helps us to first know where we need to send outreach workers, but it also helps us to kind of keep an eye on how things are going with the camp. Unsheltered people, honestly, they can be very good neighbors and they can keep their areas very clean and very safe. But if that isn't the case, we need to know about it. So don't hesitate for sure to enter information into SLC Mobile. It can only help us. If you are interested in volunteering for any of the things that we have put together, any of these outreach fairs or anything that we have put together, you can do that through what's called SLC Court. So I'll look that up. Or maybe Tim, you can look that up and put that in the chat. What that does is it's a volunteer core, basically, where you can pick a couple of different things that we need volunteer help with at the city, and you can volunteer to help us out. A lot of what we use volunteers for is setting up and taking down our resource fairs. So, and it's, you know, you have to be able to lift a little bit, but you know, you don't have to like Hulk stuff around you. Like pretty much anybody could do it.
What about the RVs? There's a lady who owns a business across from Fairmont Park. There's 3 RVs parked there, not the city street.
If it's not on a city street, that is a little bit more complex. Still send it in via SLC Mobile, and we will make sure that we get that to the right place. Probably what that would end up doing is it would end up going to our civil enforcement team if it's on private property, and they will make sure that the living conditions for those people are safe. If it is on private property, I don't know what exactly happens in a situation if somebody is living on in an RV in private property. I don't think there's much really that happens. You know, you kind of go out, make sure that they have like proper access to water and proper access to like electricity and stuff like that so that they're living safely. If it's public property, that's definitely a different story, but if it's private property, it may be a little different. So put it in SLC Mobile and we'll figure out where it goes.
Thank you.
I see one question about the tiny home village. Can I answer that?
Yeah, and we're actually going to have them come in April to talk about it. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay. So what the tiny home village is we are working with a group called the Other Side Academy. You've probably seen, like if you haven't seen them before, they run what's called micro enterprises. So they have a moving company that moves people a lot. So next time you need to move, which hopefully you don't, like hopefully you get to stay in this like great community council, but If you need to move, they're an awesome option for that. They are wanting to open up a tiny home village. And that is actually a pretty good, it's a pretty good sort of next graduated step for their the program that they already run. So they run it's like a residential support program is really what I call it. So it's not the same as a shelter. You do have to you can't just go into it if you need a place to go. You kind of have to be a good fit for their program. And what they are doing is they currently are, they've identified a site. It's out about Indiana and Redwood Road, I think, around there. They are working on zoning. There's a lot of also environmental remediation stuff that they have to do in that area to make sure that people can safely live on it. But it is definitely a place where people can safely live. So they are working on just trying to get through all of that stuff so that they can open up. It's a pretty ambitious program, I will say. I think that they wanted to be able to move in at its max about 500 people into that village. So it's definitely going to take a good amount of time and a good amount of work to get it off the ground. But if anybody can do it, the Other Side Academy definitely can. They're working very, very hard to get it done.
Thank you. And then I was able to tour it yesterday. It's an amazing place. Not the village, but the Other Side Academy. So thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They do some really good work. I would check them out if you need help moving. I'm sure they do other things too, but I know that that's the thing that I see around for sure.
Thank you for coming and being willing to talk to us.
Yeah, of course. I will drop my information in the chat. If anybody has any questions related to homelessness, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Tim, do you
everyone.
want a couple of minutes? Thank you for all you're doing.
Oh, I think Michelle did awesome. She did a great job. I just want to reinforce that we're trying to expand Overflow shelter space. The temporary overflow shelter that's open is in need of volunteers and or paid positions. And so as Michelle asked, I put those links in on the site. And I've gone out and volunteered at the homeless resource centers probably 5 times this last year. And it's quite easy. There's a lot to do, a lot of little things, but all those little things help out. So it just helps to extend the staffing issues that are currently woefully underserved to get more people in off the streets if we have the staff to do that. So please volunteer or sign up for a paid position.
Anything else, Tim? Brown garbage cans next week, right?
Pardon?
Brown garbage cans next week?
Oh yeah, March 7th, I believe it is. Yeah, good memory, Landon. Oh, and I
I
wanted
don't know
to
why I remember that.
compliment Bob Nordgaard also. He was too maybe not very prideful, but he's going to be a new sergeant. So we're sorry to hear for our purposes, but happy for him and his personal, professional. And then there was also the Citizens Academy is coming up. I got that email from Brent Weisberg. So March 3rd, which is that today? Yeah. Is if you want to apply to join in with Salt Lake City Police Community Academy, they're doing a training the whole month of March. And I'll get that link and put it in if you're interested. But it shows a lot of the different aspects that our law enforcement officers go through on a day-to-day basis. That's all I have. Thanks, Landon.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to turn the time over to Derek. So Derek was the one that reached out to Evan McMullen about coming. So Derek Williamson, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Thanks, Landon Clark.
Welcome,
guys?
Derek.
Thank you, Kelsey, and thank you, Evan, for joining us tonight. I'm gonna take a quick minute and give a shameless plug for my businesses that are opening up this weekend. We're definitely happy to tell you that Oleo Skin and Beard, the Beanhole Coffee, and Hello Bulk Markets, along with the Neighborhood Hive, are soft opening this weekend, starting Friday. We'll have some brief, half hours for the month of March, and then we'll open full time in April. So check out our social networking, the Neighborhood Hive, to see what we're doing up there. And we'll get to the main show here tonight. We've heard from a few of the candidates challenging Mike Lee for his seat. I'm a personal fan of Evan McMullen, so I did reach out to his campaign last month, and I was excited that they accepted our offer to come and chat with the community council. And I'm going to turn the time over to Evan.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Derek. Somebody unmuted me. Thank you for that. And then I had to cough, so I muted myself to not interrupt Derek, and could not unmute myself again. So thank you for doing that for me.
The times we live in.
Exactly. Well, first of all, Derek, thank you again for inviting us, and thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you. I don't know what you have in mind in terms of timing, but I can share a few thoughts about why I'm running, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So anyway, I'll get started with that and just say that, very simply, the deep reason why I'm running is that I am concerned that our country is abandoning its values, and it's making us weak. And what I mean by that is that, our values are where we find common ground. It's how we solve problems together. That's where it starts. So we can disagree on lots of policy issues, but the way I believe, and I've found in my political life, that we can find common ground is through our shared ideals, the same that our country was founded upon. And I've been speaking about that for 5 to 6 years now, the span of my brief public life. But I firmly believe that we are all created free, that we are of equal value, that we must be equal under the law. And that's why we have a government that's accountable to us. And that's how we remain free. And that's how we can all pursue happiness, which I think is our most profound purpose as human beings. And so that's what drives me. Our politics have become so broken now that we can't solve problems on the national stage, at least. And our problems seem to be mounting, whether it's, the high cost of healthcare, or, our air quality, or water, or broader climate issues, or inflation. Certainly, I'm also concerned about our very sizable national debt. I'm concerned about threats to our democracy. I think our democracy is at great risk. And so it just seems these days that our challenges are mounting, that our politics, at least the politics in Washington, are broken. And I'm running against someone, an incumbent, who I think has become the poster child for our broken politics, for the politics of division and extremism that are tearing the country apart. Now, I'm optimistic because that's not the Utah way. We have a history here in a political culture of holding to principle, but still finding ground to solve common ground to solve problems. And I think it's rooted in our history. And, my ancestors first came to Utah, or to what would become Utah, in the mid 1800s, and they were fleeing persecution and in search of opportunity. And they arrived here to a place, the Salt Lake Valley and the Utah Valley, where many other Europeans and Americans had come and decided that it was too harsh of an environment to settle. So they continued on and settled in California and Oregon and elsewhere. But when our state's founders arrived here, certainly there were Native American communities already throughout Utah. But when our European and American ancestors, state ancestors, arrived, they knew it was a harsh environment. They knew it was isolated, but they needed it in order to have protection, in order to pursue their freedom and opportunity. And they knew that they needed to work together in this harsh environment in order to survive and thrive. And so they did. And I don't think that that's, some people might hear that and say, well, that's sort of that's a nice story, but what impact does it really have on our politics? I think it has a tremendous impact on our politics and on our state culture. Yes, we're not perfect. We have our own political fights. And sometimes I wonder if the whole state isn't at a crossroads. But we have a thing here called the Utah Way, where again, we find common ground to solve problems and we move forward. And I think it has a lot to do with where we came from and how the state was founded, and how our those who came here first after the Native American communities, what they had to do to survive. And now we're a fast-growing state with a fast-growing economy, which is presenting all kinds of new challenges. But I firmly believe that the country needs our leadership, our better kind of leadership that's consistent with the Utah way. And I want to say that again, I sincerely believe that the country needs Utah's leadership in this moment. Now, I have a lot of respect for Senator Romney. I think he's done a lot of good things and stood on principle in some very difficult moments. But we need two senators who will do that, who will defend the Constitution, who will protect our democratic republic, and work constructively with members of both sides of the aisle to solve problems. That's what he does. We agree on many things. We don't agree on everything, of course. He's a good friend, but we agree on a lot. And we certainly agree on that approach to be constructive. And that is the kind of leadership that I think Utah can offer the rest of the country. And I believe that if we prevail, doing it the way we're doing it, it will make Utah the most, or one of the most influential states in the union. And I want that for Utah. And with that, we can do a tremendous amount of good. And so that's what motivates me. I would say that, maybe I could speak for a moment about our path to victory. Usually independents don't have much of a path. I've been there, done that. But that's not the case in this case. There are independents who have won Senate races around the country who are they're currently serving in the Senate. Lisa Murkowski ran as an independent in 2010. She won. Angus King on the Democratic side. He's another example. So we can do this. It hasn't been done in Utah, but a particular set of circumstances have presented themselves here that makes this the best way forward. Now, let me explain what I mean. Mike Lee is currently polling at 34%. A new poll came out yesterday. Most Utahns want to replace him. However, he is almost certain to win his Republican primary. Why? Because he's got the strength he needs at the convention and among primary voters to do it. His nearest challenger, and by the way, he's got some wonderful challengers who would be vast improvements upon him. But unfortunately, his nearest challenger is polling at 5% in the primary, where he's at 51%. And over the last 6 months, his share has been growing. So he's going to be the Republican nominee. I wish that weren't the case as a former Republican, but he's going to be the Republican nominee. Meanwhile, Democrats have not won a statewide race in Utah for decades and decades and decades. And so Democrats alone also cannot do it. But the good news is that a majority of the state wants to replace Mike Lee. It is, and that includes Democrats, independents, and what I call principled Republicans. This coalition in Utah is capable of replacing Mike Lee with a sizable margin. It's the same coalition that supports Mitt Romney. It's the same coalition that has supported me and that is supporting me. And we are building it and strengthening it. And we've made a lot of progress. There's not a major Democrat in the race. There are some Democrats running. I've asked the Democratic Party to, rather than nominate one of their candidates into the general, I've asked them to join my coalition fully and completely and help me build this. I've gone to the United Utah Party, a third party in our state, and I've asked them to do the same thing. Rather than nominating someone into the general election, join me and join my coalition. I've extended the same invitation to principled Republicans. And so I'm optimistic that those two parties they'll have their conventions and And I'm optimistic that they will join our coalition fully and not nominate additional candidates into the general election. If I have an opportunity to run against Mike Lee, and if we are united, and that's what that would mean, if we are united, Democrats, independents, and principled Republicans, we will prevail. And we will do a tremendous amount of good for our state and for our country. And I'm very excited about that, very encouraged by what I see so far, and eager to represent everyone in Utah, but especially that majority who feels poorly represented by Mike Lee. Thank you.
That's great, Evan. We appreciate your time. Got a couple of questions in the chat. Ben's asking, if you were to win as an independent, who would you caucus with?
A critical question. The answer is I have to maintain my independence, because if I don't, then I can't build this coalition and I can't properly represent this coalition. So if I were to say caucus with Republicans, Democrats would run a candidate, and they should be represented. If I'm going to caucus with Democrats, then Republicans, center-right Republicans, some of them may not want to join the coalition. We need their votes too. And so I've got to maintain my independence. I will do that, and I'll do what's best for Utah.
Awesome. And then Adam's asking, you have mentioned finding the common ground. How do you plan on doing that in this climate and with the certain cultures and frames of mind that are prevailing right now?
Well, it's another great question. Let me first of all say that I'm not going to be able to win everyone over. There are certain extremes in our politics that I think are not winnable in this election. That's the reality. But there is a coalition that exists already. I tell you, it supports me, but it supports Mitt Romney as well. It exists already, and we're strengthening it. Yes, we're building it, but it already exists. We're just adding to it. When I say build, that's what I mean. We're strengthening the connective tissues in this coalition. What unifies this coalition? First, I will say an acknowledgement of the existence of objective truth, that there is truth. 1 + 1 = 2. There's a commitment to our Constitution, that our Constitution should be upheld and defended by our elected leaders, and that it establishes a system of government that includes a range of checks and balances that protect us from anyone's accumulation of too much power. We are committed to decency. We are committed to the rule of law. We are committed to evidence-based policymaking and logic and reason. These things unite us. There are policy issues that unite us as well. We want to see the institutions that protect liberty and justice for all Americans protected. And what I mean by that is we're a majority of the state that stands against January 6th and the efforts to overturn the last election in our democratic republic. We're also a majority that believes that we should find ways to lower the cost of healthcare for all of us. Common sense solutions like letting the government negotiate on prescription drugs, using its large market power. It's just common sense things like that. Or that we need to protect our air and water. These are issues among many others that unite us, that unite this coalition. And then I would say lastly to that, and I firmly believe this, and if we had time, I would show you, but I've written about this. I wrote an op-ed in the Tribune recently about this. You can find it if you'd like. But even on the most divisive issues that face our country, I know that there is tremendous common ground. You name it, you name the divisive issue, and I know that there's tremendous common ground. Not that we're going to agree on everything, but there's an opportunity to move forward. The problem is that our system right now, the way it usually works is politicians these days cater to the extremes in their parties so they can get through the primary process. And as a result of that, they're not incentivized to identify or even talk about common ground. If you're a member of, you're a Republican in Congress and you say that, and you're in a typical district, you say that you have common ground with a Democrat or vice versa, you're going to be challenged in your next primary and you may lose it. And so the incentives are just not set up right now for most leaders to find common ground. But that's why we're doing things a little bit differently here. And we will. But I just offer that, and hopefully we have an opportunity to talk more about that at some point so I can prove it to you. But I hope you'll at least partially take my word for it. There's tremendous common ground on even the most divisive issues facing our country between most Americans and most Utahns. We won't get everybody. I understand that. We'll have some long-term work to do in projects. I get that. But there is ample common ground between this coalition that we're building to replace Mike Lee and to help the country change its politics for the better.
That's awesome, Evan. We're pulling for you. We're going to wrap up that. If anybody wants to get in touch with Evan's campaign, you can find him at his website. And also, I would encourage you to read that op-ed from the Tribune that Kelsey just posted. It's fantastic. And go get
Right.
them.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I hope to hear from you. If you want to email me at evan@evanmcmullen.com. Hard to forget. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right, Lynn. So now we have Lynn and Leah. They're going to talk about Sugar House Road construction. Go ahead.
There. I'm Leah Jaramillo. I'm the Public Engagement Manager working with Lynn on the Highland Drive Reconstruction Project and also working with Public Utilities on the 21st South Sewer Project. I'm going to throw some slides up here really quickly, and I'm going to give an update first on the sewer project because it will happen before Highland Drive. Do I have the ability to share? There we go.
While Leah is pulling that up, I'll just introduce myself, Lynn Jacobs from Transportation. So I'm managing our Highland Drive reconstruction, our 13th East reconstruction, and our 21st South reconstruction. So before we're done, we'll give you an update on all three of those as well.
So just to jump into the sewer project, we Salt Lake City Public Utilities plans to replace and upgrade the sewer under 21st South between McClellan Street and Yuma Street. So about just west of Highland Drive to just west of 21st East. We are very, very close to advertising for a construction contractor, which means that work could start as early as June. We are anticipating about 10 months of construction. So it will be this whole season. Originally we had scoped, or we were looking at whether a water line replacement could happen from about 13th East to Yuma Street, and there is not enough budget to do that. So that has been removed from the project. That line, the water line, is less old than the sewer line. The sewer line in this area ranges from about 90 to over 100 years old and is not large enough to meet the current needs of area residents. So that's what we're doing. I wanted to talk briefly about this because we have two very different sections. West of 13th East is a lot of businesses. So we're going to use something they call pipe bursting. You can see kind of in the right-hand side, some big pumps and machinery and tubes and hoses. And that's how we'll continue to provide sewer service while replacing the pipes with a pipe bursting method, which means they shove the new pipe through and break the old pipe as they go. That allows us to avoid big, deep trenches. The sewer line is 15 feet underground in some locations or deeper. At the right is, at the left is open pipe, open trench method, which we will use kind of more in the residential area to the east. That's because it's a little wider and we have more room. So our intent there is to leave one lane in each direction through both of those sections. And that's why we're using those two different methods, because they provide us with enough space to try to do that adequately. And also the pipe bursting allows us to leave more of the business driveways open as opposed to having to close them during normal business operations. This is going to be a fairly impactful project. We do anticipate lane closures, noise, vibration, dust, narrowed lanes, some access limitations as we cross individual driveways. There will be side street closures where streets connect into 21st South. We anticipate some work in the Highland Drive intersection with 21st South as well, where the two lines connect. The east-west line connects into the Highland Drive line that runs north-south. Sidewalk closures, things like that. So we want to make sure this is on people's radar. We have been out talking to people since for about a year now. We did some public input in the summer. We had a public meeting. We've been refining our engineering, getting our costing. We're just about ready to advertise. And so we want to make sure everyone is aware that that's coming. I have a public engagement team ready to help. We've been out talking to businesses and residents, and we do have an email update list that we'll start sending regular updates about. If you're interested in that, you can email us at 2100 South Sewer at slcgov.com. There's also information on the project website, which is here. I'll also drop these links in the chat, or you can always call our team directly on our project hotline. So we anticipate, like I said, getting an advertisement out to the construction community here later this month. And that would mean we would make some selection, hopefully in April. It takes a little while to get those contracts underway. So that one we will. So the questions I can see in the chat, we will dig it up again. I'm not sure about again, but yes, we will dig up the road, the sewer line. Some of the connections on side streets like Yuma Street were replaced a couple of years ago, and we will not be replacing those ones. But we are replacing sections of the road that are, or of the sewer line that are 90+ years old. In some cases, we'll also replace the laterals, so the individual connections from the property line to the main as well. In terms of restriping 21st South, Lynn is going to talk about that here briefly in a few minutes, so we'll kick that can down the road a little bit. Our intention, looking at Larry and Tyler's questions, are that we do not plan to reroute 21st South traffic onto residential streets. If we had to reroute traffic or detour traffic for any reason, we would use 1700 South or I-80 to reroute those. That doesn't mean people who live in the neighborhood don't know the side street networks and wouldn't use them, but our official detours would be to keep larger arterial street traffic on neighboring arterial streets. And yes, our intention is to keep businesses like View Street open as much as possible. We've been coordinating both, Tyler, with at least someone in your shop and also with the Dodo and other folks as well. I'd be happy to reach out to you separately. We do have a big vault that is in the parking directly across from you. That will be replaced. So our intention is absolutely to keep businesses open and accessible at all times, but it is, it is fairly extensive. And some of those lines are pretty deep. And then Lynn was asking about the water line. So yes, the water line would be replaced at a later date. It's possible that it will be addressed when a future 21st South project happens east of 1300 East. But Lynn will talk about that. So Lynn, do you want to talk about the things that are coming before we jump into Highland Drive, or do you want to do Highland Drive first? Oh, I can't hear you. You don't look
Sorry.
muted though. There we go.
My my inline mute button was pushed. You think after 2 years of doing this, I'd have it down. I think we should talk about Highland Drive first. Is for my projects, that is really the first one that will arrive and will impact folks. And so, do you have that slide?
Hey, Lynn,
Yeah.
before you guys get started, will you make sure the urban sailor's good to go?
Urban Sailor's good to go. You bet.
Thanks, Leah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Tyler, just
Take care of those guys.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I want to. Bill and I actually went and met and talked about how we were going to coordinate all of our outreach on these projects at Urban Sailor, which is how I know it's really cute on the inside, which is what I said in the chat. So
No, thank you. Okay, sorry to interrupt, Lynn.
thank you. Yes, sorry, Lynn, I'm just trying to pull up the.
Yep, pull up that slide and we'll hit on a couple things. So first off, our Highland Drive project is slated for reconstruction next year. So I keep getting notes that my internet connection is unstable. So hopefully you don't lose me.
Can you see my slides?
It's
There we
coming
go.
up.
Yep.
There we go. So Leah, do you want to just share that schedule slide? Maybe we just jump right to that. And
Yeah.
we'll just, for the sake of time, I know we're running a little bit behind schedule, but just so that you know where we're at with this project. So it's slated for construction next year. And essentially where we're at right now is working with both third-party utilities and other people who have interest in this roadway. And then also we're setting up a lot of additional one-on-one meetings with property owners and business owners along the corridor to make sure that we are fully aware of all the issues and just work through all the little details. And so over the next 6 to 9 months or so, we'll be doing that work and finalizing our design and engineering. And then our hope is that in October to November that we'll be ready to advertise to pick a contractor to build this. And then that would tee us up for construction early next year. And so this is Highland Drive from essentially I-80 up to 1700 South. And then we will have a separate project that's running concurrently between 1700 South and 900 South to the north. So Highland Drive, 11th East, lots of construction slated for 2023. And then just to kind of speak about what the bigger picture is, as soon as we're done with that construction on Highland Drive, we're going to start working on 1300 East in 2024, so the following year. And we are currently doing a study to evaluate what we will be accomplishing with that project. We're still 2 years out, so we're kind of at that preliminary initial design phase right now on that project. We'll have an open house, happy to announce, on April 19th. And so we're scheduling that right now and planning for that. I'm going to, when I'm done talking, I'll put an email address in the chat that people can reach out to us to get on a mailing list to keep in the loop on that 13th East project. So we're still, a month and a half out from that open house. We're really excited. We're planning on doing that in person. And so we're out actively looking for a venue right now and getting prepared to hopefully do that as long as our COVID safe level. We're hoping that we can pull that off in person. So please put that on your calendar, save the date, April 19th. They'll probably be in the later time or location yet, but we're working on that. So that construction will be in 2024. And then let's talk about the big enchilada, the 21st South. And I've seen several comments about that here in the chat tonight. So as soon as we're done with 13th East, we're going to turn our attention and hit 21st South. Now our 21st South reconstruction area is from 700 East to 1300 East. So the area east of where that water line was, where we were thinking about doing that water line. I think right now we do know that water line will need to get replaced as well in that area. And we will probably be replacing it as part of that project, but we're still, almost 3 years out from that construction. A lot can happen between now and then. I know it's ideal for us to get in once, get things done, get on our way. That water line is just part of the public utilities project, and their funding is just not there to do it. And so I know that we're all struggling to meet those rising, escalating costs and trying to get everything done. And that's why that water line is not planned for replacement at this time. I don't believe that they have planned a future project to replace it yet. It's not as old as that sewer line, as Leah had mentioned. Also, my understanding is that the sewer line on 21st South is actually too small to even serve its current need. And so we have to get that done now. One way or another, that's got to happen just to continue to provide the level of service that we are in that area to all of you that live in that area. So that's happening this year, even though we're going to come back and rebuild that road in 2025. Now, as we talk about what that striping or configuration looks like on 21st South, we don't know, and we're not going to know until we've actually taken a really hard look at that and done a lot more study, a lot more civic engagement. Our plan for that one is to kick off a study here in the next couple months. We've selected a contractor for that study, and we're negotiating our scope and fee right now and just getting ready to get going on that big study and try to figure out exactly what we're going to do with 21st South. And I'll tell you what we're planning on doing for that. We've gone out and collected a whole lot of new traffic data. We're looking at very detailed information about the people who are using that roadway, where they come from, where they go to, how they travel in the area. We're already gleaning some really insightful things that we're going to be coming back in the future and sharing with this group. But we're not ready for that conversation yet, and we won't be for probably another 3 to 6+ months. But know that we will be having that conversation in the future when we come back with that other study.
And that's something I wanted to add too, as we move through the Highland Drive concept study. We did have a meeting with Erica and Brandon at the chamber. We are trying to work really closely with the businesses in that in the Highland Drive business district. And we will be hosting business roundtables every other month. So our next one is in April. I think it's the second Wednesday in April. And we'll plan to do those, I think, through at least through design, but ideally through construction as well. That Highland Drive project is going to be hard to build. The north section in particular, it's Highland Drive's or 11th East is very narrow. So we want to figure out ways to build it and keep the businesses accessible and open. We're going to rely on you all here at the community council as well to help get the word out about people still supporting our sugar house businesses during that construction, people figuring out how to navigate around it while we're reconstructing. So we do have those roundtables. We also have a planned business workshop later in the summer, and then a public sort of broader residential motorist open house in the summer before we advertise for construction. So people are kind of up to speed on how we think it could be built. So lots of engagement in Sugar House.
Hey, Lynn, did you want to touch on 2700 South?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Landon.
Yeah.
We are also planning a resurfacing for 2700 South, like you've seen us do in the past. It'll be a chip seal, and we're looking at that area between 700 East and Highland Drive. A couple of years ago, we did from Highland Drive to the east. Now we're coming in looking at that piece between 7th East and Highland Drive and trying to figure out what to do with that stretch of the road. So similar to these other projects, we are just starting on our design for that, starting our civic engagement. It's really challenging with these surface treatment projects. We usually don't have a lot of time to do a lot of civic engagement or design. So essentially that construction, it's essentially we go out and just resurface the road. It takes about a day to do that, maybe 2 at the most. That's probably 3 to 4 months from now is when we're expecting that to hit. So I'm actively looking at that roadway, trying to figure out what, if any, changes we could make when we do that resurfacing. Now, whenever we do a resurfacing project, it's a little different than these bigger construction projects. We can't move our curb and gutter. We can't widen sidewalk. We can't add new ramps for pedestrians to use. So really all we're looking at doing is if there's any changes to any striping and signing that we could make to that roadway when we do it, we'll be evaluating those over the next couple months. Lots going on. It's a busy time, Sugar House, and it will get busier before we're done.
Well, thanks for always keeping us in the loop.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you guys are welcome. Hey, Bill, you want to chat for a minute? You've been on a long time.
I thought it was something I might have said before how you doing?
You've never been on this meeting so long, so go ahead. I
I find it interesting. I sometimes, I guess I'm looking back and having left you early a couple of times. So
You want to talk about the hawk light?
yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting situations. I don't know if Judy is still on here or not, but I swear to God, Judy, it's very, 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 very close to being done. I think you guys have seen, if you've driven through there, that while the equipment is up, the the ped walkway has been laid out. Everything is cleaned up, parking is back. What we don't have yet is a certification inspection by Rocky Mountain Power to get the power turned on, nor do we have the obviously the crosswalk painting done yet. I have noticed that a few people, of course, they were there before too, before we even had anything there. But there seems to be more people now that are not worried about having the painting done or the light working. So it's getting used already, but it should be up in the next couple of weeks, I'm told. Rocky Mountain Power should be out there soon, and they will have a crosswalk laid in, I'm told, by mid-March. And so we'll officially have a crosswalk there at 2150 that has been a de facto crosswalk for the last 20 years or whatever. So yeah, that's after many promises, it is now getting finished up. So just a couple of other quick notes. The McClellan Street project will be starting up this spring, and we are hoping and praying that the Sugarmont apartment project will be done in time as we start that road reconstruction project that will be coming up probably April, May. I keep being told 2 months to be done there. So that's getting done. And then a couple of quick notes on something coming up are the two big projects now, apartment projects. The Altaterra will soon be getting serious, I think April, May, I'm told. They're digging some serious holes out there now. They should be under construction by mid-April, early May. The Snow Grove project will be a little bit later. It's going to be, I think he said July, August. So those things will be coming in and shouldn't be great impacts in terms of their locations and where they're going to be able to operate from. And a quick note here on the Sugar Alley Apartments. So they're going to be opening the first phase in November. So a lot of guys are doing this now. And then they'll be finishing the project and its last opening the second phase in February. But they'll be actually starting to open for business phase one in October, November. And that'll be good to get that project off of Highland Drive about the time we start working on Highland Drive next year, next spring. So I don't think there's a lot of other big stuff happening. The sewer project you heard about. And yeah, I think we're, again, having a little bit of a breather here, but it's getting going to be ramping up. You'll see a lot more cranes in the air here in the next few months. Izzy North and South are both busy also. So far, they're able to stay off the roadway and not impacting anybody. So, yeah.
Bill, thanks for
Got
it.
it.
All right, man. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay. Laura Stevens. So she's filling in for Amy Fowler. Do you wanna
Hi,
introduce yourself?
everyone. Yeah, so Amy got held up in another meeting and she's very sorry that she couldn't make it. So redistricting is on its way. 9 people have been selected for the committee and are working on it. In the chat, I'm going to be adding a link that you can do to suggest where the district should be and where district lines should be, so that the redistricting committee knows what you guys want and care about for District 7 boundaries. Right now, the city council is also looking at creating a community development block grant budget. Currently, we don't have a link for any sort of budget proposals for that, but it should be on the agendas for city council meetings. Stratford Avenue was having a proposal. The city council sent that back to the planning commission to look at that and reevaluate things. I will be adding links about the Stratford Avenue development in the chat as well. An update from last month, the City Council did write letters to the county about the mines being proposed in Parley's Canyon, to encourage the county to not approve those mines. I'm looking forward to March 29th. It's Ma and Pa Business Day. Amy loves every single one of these small businesses in Sugar House and District 7. She loves them all. And she wants to encourage everyone to visit them, to spend time there, spend money there, because she loves all of them. She thinks they are very special and make Sugar House the amazing place that it is, and a place that we want to live and spend time in. And so please visit them, especially with all the construction that's going to be coming up. We want them to stay in Sugar House. So please spend money there so they can stay. Yeah, so that's all the things from Amy.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I always have to give time to the library.
Thanks, Landon. I appreciate it. Just some quick updates. Our downtown location, Maine, opened back up for patrons as of February 22nd. So we're excited to have everybody back there. And if you've noticed, the west side entrance looks like it's done because that's been under construction for a while. So we're really excited to see progress there. And we are officially under just a mask recommended, not required. So you can come in without your mask now. You probably won't get hassled by anybody. And we're working on Super Summer Challenge stuff. So gearing up for some, we're going to do our outdoor concert series that we haven't had for several years. That's coming back. So we're really excited to start to get back to normal. And then the next thing that we'll do is we're looking at expanding our hours. Right now we're closing at 6. A lot of that was due to just staffing shortages and hiring freezes that we had, but we are slowly getting there. And yeah, so hopefully we can also get some approval for when we can have groups meeting back in the library. So to be determined on that, but we're looking forward to those coming up.
We hope to hold our council meeting at your place soon. So thank you.
Yeah, we would love to have y'all.
Yeah, we'd be happy to be back.
Thanks.
All right, we're just gonna get, since we just have a few minutes, we're gonna go with some committee updates. So Judy Short, who is our land use and zoning chair. Go ahead, Judy.
I wanted to say our next land use meeting is going to be Monday, March 21st. We do have an ADU again on Driggs Avenue, but the big thing we're going to talk about is the city's affordable housing overlay zone, which is pretty comprehensive, hard to understand, and could affect a lot of us. So I'm hoping for some good, robust conversation. That will be 6 o'clock on the 21st. Thank you.
Hey, and Judy, nothing with the come and go, right? Nothing new. Just keep sending your comments your way.
Send your comments, and we don't have to write a letter till I think it's due on the 23rd of March.
Okay.
So I'm putting that off. So far, one person out of 105 has said they like it.
Thank you. All right, Sally, you can unmute yourself. So Sally runs our Parks, Open Spaces, and Trails Committee. Go ahead, Sally.
Okay, well, I will start with the announcement for our next meeting, which now Judy and I have separated again for the rest of the year. And so ours will be on the 14th, second Monday at 6 o'clock. And this month we're going to have Luke Allen from Salt Lake City Parks Department come and talk about the CIP construction project for irrigation in Hidden Hollow. This project has been out there almost as long as that hawk light. And so we are really anxious to get some water into Hidden Hollow. We've planted some new trees last fall, and you know, they're not going to survive without supplementary water. So we're excited to hear if they've actually put this out to bid and we're ready to go. I think it was an approved CIP project like 3 or 4 years ago before COVID. So this has been a long time coming. And we may, although I'm still working on the details of it, have someone come to talk about doing murals, painting murals on the glass recycling bins. If you go up, if you're starting to go up toward just past the zoo, there's a bin at Rotary Park that's been painted as a mural. And so they're starting to do those around the city, and Fairmont Park. The Friends of Fairmont Park would like to see theirs painted with a nice Sugar House mural on it. So we may be hearing from that organization also. So those are the things that are on my agenda for the, what I say, 17th?
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. We're gonna get, how about Lori Bray? Do you have anything for us, Lori?
I do. I missed reaching out to you to get in the newsletter, but we're having our first Sugar House Art Walk of the year on March 11th. And so that's the second Friday of the month, and they will be held every month for the rest of the year on the second Friday of the month. And they're lots of fun. Lots of local businesses participate. And this month, Yoga 6 is joining us for the first time. So I'm excited about that. And stay tuned for some events on Monument Plaza in coming months. And Sally didn't mention this, but hopefully all of you have seen the painted bin at Sugar House Park with a mural on it. So the Arts and Culture Committee hopes to be involved in that. And I'm not completely up to speed on anything else, but look online on Facebook or Instagram for the information about the Art Walk. And please come and support the local businesses and artists. It's so important. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming again. We'll see you in April. It's a great community, so thanks.